Hello and welcome to the Montana VEBA Health Reimbursement Account, or VEBA HRA presentation for employees. My name is Melanie Dang and I am the VEBA and Training Health Officer at the Department of Administration's Healthcare and Benefits Division. This session is intended to educate you on all aspects of the Montana VEBA HRA. The packet that you have, either electronically or printed in hand, consists of a summary of benefits, which is a document providing you a summary of what's covered in this presentation, a list of eligible expenses reimbursable under the Montana VEBA HRA, question and answer document, which is a document that outlines some of the basics covered during the presentation. This is a nice resource if you have additional VEBA questions after the presentation. A copy of the cover memo and enrollment form. The enrollment form is completed when a VEBA group member leaves employment and becomes eligible to participate in the Montana VEBA HRA. On the back of this enrollment form, or as a separate sheet, is a summary of each available investment option and a recent fund quarterly performance of each. Let's talk about the history of the VEBA. In the year 2000, the state of Montana, along with public sector employers, including cities, counties, school districts, and the Montana University System, were all asked to research options to help retiring employees with their out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums during retirement years. Public sector employees all receive employer contributions for health coverage while they are active employees. However, when the public entity employee retires, 100% of the health insurance premiums are the new retiree's responsibility. For reference, in 2003, if you were not yet 65 and you and your spouse were covered by the state of Montana for medical and dental coverage, the monthly premiums were approximately $475 a month. In today's dollars, the premiums for that same coverage is approximately $2,000 per month. A work group of representatives from the state of Montana, as well as other public sector employers, it was established to explore the options available to help our retiring public sector employees with out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums during retirement years. Out of that came the Voluntary Employee Beneficiary Association, or VEBA, Health Reimbursement Account, or HRA. This was selected as the best solution for the retirees' needs. Based on recommendations from the work group, Senate Bill 51 was drafted and passed during the 2001 legislative session and codified as Montana Code MCA 218-1301. The Department of Administration's Healthcare and Benefits Division spent 2 years filing required documents with the IRS and gaining necessary IRS approvals, hiring vendors to administer the plan, and in the fall of 2003, Healthcare and Benefits Division, or HCBD, began working with state agencies and public employers to set up the Montana VEBA HRA groups. This allowed group members to contribute 25% of their excess sick leave to the Montana VEBA HRA when they left employment and became participants. The 2007 legislature then passed Senate Bill 168 that then allowed 100% of our annual or vacation leave to be used as an additional VEBA HRA contribution source to the 25% excess sick leave. After the implementation of the Affordable Health Care Act, ACA, in 2010, the Montana VEBA has become a separation-only plan and has operated in that same manner since. However, out-of-pocket health care expenses and premiums still remain one of our largest challenges that retirees face during retirement. This is no different when the program was originally developed in 2001. What exactly is the Montana VEBA HRA? VEBAs are a type of tax-exempt trust that are used by its members and their tax-qualified dependents to pay for eligible healthcare expenses and premiums and have existed in tax law since the Revenue Act of 1928. Final regulations under the Internal Revenue Code, or IRC, were published in 1981, and VEBAs have operated the same since that time. Specifically, the Montana VEBA HRA is a health reimbursement arrangement funded when an employee terminates their employment, and the employer then pays out the employee's sick and vacation leave balances. The Montana VEBA HRA only allows for employer contributions, and those are contributed on a tax-free basis at separation. However, participants can only access these funds to pay for eligible healthcare expenses after their separation or retirement. The Montana VEBA HRA is available to public sector employees in Montana, including employees with the state of Montana, cities, counties, PERS eligible school districts, and the Montana University System. As mentioned before, the Montana VEBA HRA was intended to help an individual and their dependents pay for out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums after separating or during retirement. If you are a VEBA group member, your employer contributes the value of your sick and annual or vacation leave, if the group has elected such, those balances to your Montana VEBA HRA when you separate from employment or retire. Contributions to the Montana VEBA HRA are made tax-free, which allows you and your employer to avoid tax consequences when the amount is paid out. This can be a significant savings to you. Your Montana VEBA HRA funds can then be used to pay for eligible healthcare expenses and premiums. For the following examples, I'm using state of Montana or state plan premium amounts. Your monthly premium cost for yourself and your non-Medicare spouse would be $2,021 per month, or $24,252 a year. You should check with your employer-provided health plan for the premium amounts that would apply specifically to you. If you plan to retire after you turn 65 and would elect state plan coverage, the monthly premium cost for yourself and a Medicare spouse would be $875 per month, or $10,487 a year. Again, these calculations are based upon 2020 state plan retiree premiums for medical, dental, prescription drug, and vision hardware coverage. You should check out your employer benefits website for additional premium information that applies specifically to you. An upcoming retirement in a work unit typically triggers the VEBA group formation discussion. Employees start doing the math, so to speak, and some level of panic can set in, realizing that retirement is a really big deal. Retirees will have income sources such as Social Security, a retirement check from PERS or Impera, possibly access to a 457 or 403B plan, and possibly another retirement savings account. Additional income sources might include a medical savings account, or MSA, and or if the work unit has agreed, a Montana VEBA HRA. These last two are considered income sources because they're limited to payment of your out-of-pocket healthcare expenses or premiums. Hopefully, with a little bit of careful planning, your worry fades and your plans for retirement look bright. The IRS requires employees to participate in a VEBA group in order to be eligible to participate in the Montana VEBA HRA at their separation or retirement. There are approximately 175 state of Montana groups in place currently. Other public entities also have numerous groups. There are approximately 10 cities and towns with about 25 groups. University groups are at MSU Bozeman, Flathead Valley Community College, and Montana Tech in Butte. There are 8 counties with groups, and additionally many of the K-12 entities have formed groups in Great Falls, Missoula, Lolo, Savage, and others. Most VEBA groups are formed within smaller work units, and VEBA groups must follow organizational chart boundaries per the IRS regulations. They are set up either on the basis of any separation, which is everybody in the work unit or the small picture I have shown here, or it is a subset of just the PERS retirement eligible employees. When we talk about retirement eligible, I'll use the following example. This chart describes being vested on the left-hand side of the diagram and fully eligible to retire on the right-hand side of the diagram, and then depending upon your date of hire. This example is using the PERS defined benefit option. Every system that PERS has similar criteria for vesting and fully eligible. They're just different. This particular example covers many public entity employees. If within a work unit there are at least 5 employees who are eligible to retire, either being vested or fully eligible, left hand or right hand side of the diagram, then a VEBA group may be formed. If, for example, there are 8 employees that are retirement eligible, then all 8 must be considered for the group, not just the minimum of 5. That said, how do we determine eligible to retire criteria? Every month, MPERA generates a listing of eligible to retire employees from all the systems that they are responsible for administering. Being eligible for early retirement or being vested have different criteria than being fully eligible to retire depending on the system you participate in. On this chart, the criteria is divided first by vested and then by fully eligible, left and right, and then again, top and bottom, by when you were hired. To be considered eligible for a VEBA group with eligible to retire criteria, you must either be vested or fully retirement eligible. And shortly, we will discuss the effect of being in a VEBA and your PERS retirement check calculation and your highest 36 months of salary. The first step of this group adoption process includes education for a potential group member, then determination of interest in a work unit. The next step is to move to a group vote by letting your HR or payroll contact know that the work unit wishes to proceed with the formation of a VEBA group. Ballots are distributed and a vote is held. We will discuss more on the next slide. If a work unit votes yes to a VEBA, then you just keep coming to work. You are now a VEBA group member. However, you are not a VEBA participant until you separate or retire from service, submit the enrollment form, which is the last page of your handout as an example, and your employer then sends a contribution to the Montana VEBA HRA third-party administrator. Once you become a VEBA participant, you will receive a welcome packet from the third-party administrator and instructions about how to access your VEBA HRA funds. A VEBA group must have at least 5 members. They must stick to existing work unit boundaries, which is the organizational structure we spoke about earlier, in order to prevent an opportunity for what's called individual choice. This is prohibited by the IRS regulations. An identified work unit can further divide into including everyone that works in that work unit, as in any separation, or just those in the work unit who are retirement eligible. A work unit also needs to agree on the contribution source or sources before the group is offered, which will be discussed in further detail on the next slides. If the work unit cannot decide on a contribution source, a straw poll ballot will be distributed with all the options that the group has, and the majority determines the contribution source for the group for 1 year. Once the work unit has determined the contribution source, then ballots will be distributed by the HR payroll staff to the work unit, and a due date will be assigned. Once the ballots are received and tallied, work unit members are notified of the result. The result is determined by the majority vote from the ballots received and is in effect for 1 year. For example, if there are 10 persons in a work unit and 10 ballots are sent out, then at the due date and time of the vote, the ballots received are counted with 8 being returned, with 5 yeses and 3 nos. Then 5 yes votes carry the group for 1 year. The 3 individuals that voted no and the 2 that did not return a vote do not have individual choice to opt out and will be required to be in the group as group members for 1 year. If you are not separating or retiring in the year in which the VEBA is in effect, the VEBA does not immediately impact you. There is no change to how much leave you earn or how you use your leave balances during employment when you're a VEBA group member. A change only occurs when you leave your position and your sick or sick and vacation leave balances are paid out if your group is in effect. The effective date of the group is linked to the payroll cycle dates once a vote is completed. Your group will be reminded annually of your option to vote for the upcoming year. So if you are within 6 to 18 months of your retirement or separation, we strongly encourage you to visit the Impera office and ask them to assist you with your retirement benefit calculation. By law, all public entities may either offer the Montana VEBA HRA as an employer benefit offering or plan education sessions based on employee interests of the program may be offered. If your entity offers a high deductible health plan or HDHP with a health savings account or HSA as a benefit package offering, both the HSA and the Montana VEBA HRA are able to work together. There are some ordering rules between the two, and I can visit with you after a presentation as to how these plans can work together. Lastly, there are opportunities that allow for public entities to offer other contribution sources such as termination pay or discretionary leave options. The key to these options is to assure that everyone in the proposed VEBA group have equal access to these and other contribution sources in order to be considered to be a VEBA eligible contribution. When a VEBA group is formed, the work unit will need to agree on the contribution source prior to the group vote. Contribution source is the amount of sick leave and annual leave that will be paid out and contributed directly to the Montana VEBA HRA tax-free when the employee separates or retires. Remember, separating versus retiring will depend upon how the work unit boundaries are structured. All of the VEBA groups are required to use 25% sick leave as a contribution source. It is most elected to have the full 25% sick leave payout contributed. Work units may also contribute 100% of their annual or vacation leave payout as an additional contribution source to the 25% sick leave. If a work unit decides to use the annual or vacation leave as a contribution, it is 100%. There is not a lesser percentage contribution offered on the vacation. Also remember that when I said in 2007 the rules were changed to allow the annual or vacation to considered as a new contribution source, at that same time it was agreed to allow work units at the state of Montana to modify the required 25% sick leave contribution to allow some of the sick leave balance to be paid out as taxable income and some to be considered as a tax-free VEBA contribution. So there are options that state of Montana work units can consider that would allow sick leave contribution in 5% increments up to the maximum of 25%, and the remaining sick leave balance paid out as taxable income up to 25%. The most common contribution sources, however, are still the 25% sick leave only, or 25% sick leave and 100% of annual leave. Remember, there is no individual choice. Once a work unit declares their option to contribute contribution sources, what will be used to the work unit vote by a majority to adopt that contribution source, it will apply to everyone in the VEBA group for 1 year. 30 days prior to the 1-year anniversary of the formation of your VEBA group, the group will be notified of its right to take another vote for the upcoming year. The group may, as I like to refer to it, keep it, drop it, or change it. In other words, if the group agrees to continue as is, the group will automatically continue for another year with the same contribution source. However, if 25% of the group wants to take a vote, then the group can vote to either change the group's contribution source or vote to disband the group. If the group votes to disband, it may remain disbanding, or they can reform at some time in the future. The disbanded group could potentially reform and revote with an additional organizational level or other work unit structure. Disbanding is the only time a group does not have to wait an entire year to reform. If the group votes to continue as is, or to change the contribution from, for example, 25% sick and 100% annual to just 25% sick leave, that new vote would be in place for 1 year. I know we have already discussed this, but remember, if a work unit votes yes to VEBA, then you just keep showing up to work. You're a VEBA group member. You are not a VEBA group participant and have an account until you separate or retire from service and the following 2 steps get completed. Step 1, when you separate or retire, you must fill out and turn in the Montana VEBA HRA enrollment form to HR and Payroll. Step 2, HR and Payroll will process your leave payout, and it will then be sent to the Montana VEBA HRA third-party administrator. These 2 steps are what establishes your VEBA account, and those must be completed before you're able to access your VEBA HRA funds as a VEBA participant. After you become a VEBA participant and your Montana VEBA HRA account is established, you will then be charged a monthly administration fee that will be withheld directly from your Montana VEBA HRA account. This fee is 1.5% assessed on an annualized basis. So let's talk about what that means. Take the 1.5% and divide it by 12 months, and you follow the arrow down to the blue box, you will see 0.00125 assessed each month against your account balance. For this example in the box, that equates to $12.50 at the end of the first month on a $10,000 starting balance. There's 2 ways I'd like to explain this. First, for example, if you were to be spending $1,000 a month on your health insurance premium, the next month, the 0.00125 fee would be applied to the lower account balance of $10,000 minus $1,000 premium minus the first month's fee. So your second month's fee would be based on $8,987.50. That would be $11.25. For the third month, the fee would continue to decrease to approximately $10 and ongoing. The point being that the fees in this example decrease each month because of the decreasing account balance. Secondly, maybe you don't touch your example of $10,000 VEBA account for 1 year. You just leave it be, and your earnings were minimal, for example. Then you would have an approximate total fee for 1 year of $150 deducted. Again, considering that you saved approximately $4,200 in taxes as a VEBA participant, your fees remain a very small deduction. Depending on your investment choices, you could further reduce your fees and continue to maintain your principal balance. Who and what does VEBA cover? The who is you, your spouse, and any tax qualified dependents. You do not have to be all on the same health plan, but the IRS does state that they must be your tax qualified dependents in order to participate. The what is on page 2 of your handout. Eligible expenses include deductibles, copays, and other eligible out-of-pocket costs for medical, dental, prescription drug, vision, and many over-the-counter items. Anything considered in IRC Section 213D is a medical expense considered Montana VEBA HRA. In addition to out-of-pocket healthcare expenses, the monthly premiums that you pay for your healthcare and benefits may also be considered as eligible Montana VEBA HRA expenses. This includes medical, dental, vision, and long-term care premiums, as well as Medicare Part B, D, and Medicare Supplement Plan premiums. Please know, the IRS does not allow you to be reimbursed for out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums from the Montana VEBA HRA if you are enrolled on your working spouse's medical coverage. You may, in that instance, utilize your Montana VEBA HRA funds for dental and vision expenses, including premiums for that coverage. In this instance, you must enroll in a limited scope benefit option when you are on an active. Then when you and your spouse are both retired, you may then when your spouse and you are both retired, you may then be reimbursed from the Montana VEBA HRA for your monthly medical insurance premiums and other eligible healthcare expenses. Here are a number of VEBA premium scenarios to review. The first one, do I need to keep my employer offered coverage? The answer is no. The Montana VEBA is not tied to you keeping your employer plan coverage when you retire. Number two, if you are 65 when you retire and you choose not to keep your employer plan benefits, you may be reimbursed for Part B Medicare, Part D Medicare, and any Medicare supplement plan premiums, as well as any other healthcare policy you purchase for you and your tax-qualified dependents. Number three, if you are under 65 when you retire, there is marketplace exchange coverage options available to you. If you are eligible for the subsidized exchange coverage and you choose to take the subsidy, there are restrictions for accessing your Montana VEBA HRA funds. This is called a limited scope VEBA HRA. I can work with you after the presentation by your using my contact information to discuss your options. The bottom line is that you can still access your Montana VEBA HRA funds even if you choose medical coverage other than the employer plan. And lastly, may I move to a spouse's coverage? Yes, you may. But if the spouse is actively working, you will have to limit your scope of your VEBA HRA until both of you are in retirement status. Again, all contributions made to your Montana VEBA HRA are done on a tax-free basis, as well as the withdrawals made from the Montana VEBA HRA for your eligible expenses. Once you become a VEBA participant, remember those 2 required steps after you separate or retire. Then you have complete access to your Montana VEBA HRA funds for your out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums after the date of your separation or retirement. You may not use the VEBA for any healthcare expenses that were incurred prior to the date of your separation or retirement. Last, you will also choose how to invest your contributions, and the earnings on your contributions will also be tax-free. Let's look at the front of the last page of your handout, the Montana VEBA HRA enrollment form. Look at the third section on this enrollment form, and you will see 10 investment options. You will build your own portfolio from these options when you complete the enrollment form and become a VEBA participant. You may make changes to your investment options as often as once a month. The investment options are professionally managed by Washington Trust Bank. On the back of your enrollment form, you see each investment fund's performance over time. If you do not select an investment fund when you complete the enrollment form, your entire contribution will default to the first one listed on the enrollment form. This fund is a money market fund in which your principal will be protected. Additional key benefits for you to consider. In addition to the unused balance in your Montana VEBA HRA carries over year. In other words, there's no annual use it or lose it restrictions. Most people begin accessing their Montana VEBA accounts right away given the healthcare premiums they're facing, and they're becoming due shortly after your separation or retirement. Most VEBA participants find the Montana VEBA HRA is also able to fund between 6 and 18 months worth of eligible expenses. Some accounts may last shorter period and some may last much longer, but the Montana VEBA HRA should not be considered a long-term investment. Your spouse and tax-qualified dependents are covered even if you should pass away. You may be asking yourself, what happens if I pass away before all the funds are withdrawn? If you pass away and you're still an active employee, but the But as a VEBA group member, your leave balances will be paid out and taxed as normal payroll event to your surviving dependents. To be a VEBA participant with a Montana VEBA HRA, you must have separated or retired, must have submitted a signed enrollment form, and you must have had your leave contribution deposited in the Montana VEBA HRA. None of these things can happen if you pass away as an active employee, so you wouldn't be in a VEBA. If, however, you pass away after you separate or retire, and you were a VEBA participant with an established Montana VEBA HRA account, then your surviving spouse and any tax-qualified dependents can submit claims for their eligible out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and for premiums until their date of death, or the HRA funds are depleted. They may also submit claims and receive reimbursement for eligible expenses incurred by you before your death, if they weren't previously reimbursed. The same restrictions for reimbursement apply to your spouse and tax-qualified dependents. The Montana VEBA HRA may only be used for eligible out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums, and if you have no tax-qualified dependents, your remaining Montana VEBA HRA fund balance reverts back to the plan. For perspective on this last point, in the 15 years of operation of the Montana VEBA HRA, this has happened less than 0.01% of the time. Now, please refer to the chart on the first column of page 1 of your handout, the VEBA summary. It shows what your protected leave payout would be after taxes if you were not a VEBA group member and you had leave balances available for a payout of $10,000, sick and vacation. There is an additional federal income tax assessed of approximately 22%, and that's reflected in this example. A leave balance is treated similarly to an incentive bonus, which is taxed than higher regular income. This slide demonstrates the option of transferring that same leave balance, $10,000, tax-free into the Montana VEBA HRA. As you can see, there's no tax withholding. You have access to the entire amount of your designated leave payout to use in eligible out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums. This slide summarizes the scenarios we just discussed. So in short, if you were due a $10,000 payout and were a VEBA group member, the entire $10,000 payout would be deposited in your Montana VEBA HRA versus receiving the payout as taxable income in your last paycheck at a reduced amount. In this example, there would have been approximate tax savings of $4,265, which could equal a few months of healthcare premium that can be reimbursed to you tax-free. I have many times been asked, how long will my VEBA account last? This is a tough question because each participant's situation is very different. I don't know how much you started with. I don't know how much you're spending monthly, how you're investing it. So here are a couple of examples. If you consider the previous $10,000 account example with a $1,000 a month healthcare premium, your account would be exhausted in approximately 9 months. Or in the case of a larger account balance shown here, and you have an estimated $650 per month healthcare premium payment and a 5% annual average of return on your investment, you could stretch your account out for a bit. Again, I'm just providing you tools to allow you to do some calculations and planning for yourself. Montana VEBA HRA balances are generally categorized as fast spend monies because they're paying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses and premiums. The average lifespan of a Montana VEBA HRA account is approximately 6 to 18 months. I have also been asked how the Montana VEBA HRA payout at retirement could impact your Social Security monthly benefit. Because your Social Security benefit is calculated on a lifetime of earnings, that monthly benefit amount is calculated late in your career and depends on the age in which you retire and decide to draw Social Security. The tax-free portion of your Montana VEBA HRA payout for retirees is also made late in your career. Research has demonstrated that in nearly all cases, the impact to your Social Security benefit is minimal to none by participating in the Montana VEBA HRA. This slide reminds you that you should be in touch with PERS or MPERA. Remember, your sick leave and potentially your sick and vacation leave are agreed, if they're agreed upon as a VEBA group contribution source at separation, those same leave balances may not be considered when calculating your retirement benefit along with your 36 months of salary calculation. There are many different calculations that you must consider, and PERS can assist you with figuring out these details for your personal retirement calculation based on the retirement system that you belong to and what combination might work best for you. On this slide is their website and all contact information for resources that can assist you in relation to VEBA and your leave balances. They have asked me to let you know that it is best to plan well in advance and contact them at least 6 to 18 months prior to your retirement date. Oftentimes, this can coincide with your annual VEBA group vote. You may not be retiring for 3 and 4 years, but when you are 6 to 18 months from retirement, it is suggested that you get in touch with PERS to know how the VEBA vote will affect you. Once you've submitted your enrollment form to your HR payroll staff, your employer will submit the contribution to our third-party administrator, Rain & Associates. Your Montana VEBA HRA will then be established, and Rain & Associates will send you a welcome packet, which will include information on how to access your account and who to contact with questions. Rain & Associates has a dedicated team to address questions ranging from claim reimbursements, premium plan payments, eligible expenses, details about your account, investment changes, and completing and filling out forms. You may contact Rain & Associates after your account is established at 800-832-2101. Be sure and ask for the Montana VEBA HRA representatives so that you reach our dedicated team to support your needs. Rain also provides you with a website to access these services online as well. www.montana.rainonline.com. Again, your account will be established after you separate from service. So what are your next steps? Now that education has been completed, your next steps will vary. This could be the first time you've ever heard this information, and your work unit needs time to discuss and make decisions. Discussion and research are important. An additional education session may be needed. This may be also a presentation to just address your annual vote and make sure everyone in your group is on the same page. Regardless of your situation, ask questions, make sure you're informed, and look also at the Montana VEBA HRA website at www.montanaveba.org. This is printed for you at the bottom of the second column of the first page of your handout. Everything we have reviewed today is on this webpage. I will put a slide up shortly with my contact information as well. Don't forget, if you are within 6 to 18 months from retirement, you should be in contact with PERS to discuss your personal scenario for retirement so that you will be able to make your most educated vote. Then, participate in the vote. Remember, a ballot that is not returned does not equal a no vote. The results are based on the majority of those votes received. In summary, if you become a Montana VEBA HRA participant, you will receive a tax-free contribution to the VEBA at the time that you separate or retire, depending on your group, based on your group's agreed upon contribution sources, whether it's sick or sick and vacation. You can invest your contribution sources based on 10 investment options and earnings are tax-free. When you withdraw the funds from your account to pay your eligible out-of-pocket expenses and premium, the withdrawals remain tax-free. Here is my direct contact information to assist you with any questions that you may have. Thank you for your attendance today, and we'll now lead you to contact us for further questions. Thank you.